Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast chat, and I'm eating bison rice and cranberry juice. As usual. Today I wanted to bring up a topic because this came up not that long ago when I was discussing relative strength, and people started to bring up the whole point of strength versus weight. And I also had the topic come up with people saying, look, Jason, shouldn't a person's experience level, like if you throw out these numbers of this is roughly the strength a person should be, at this level of advancement, doesn't body weight come into play? And that's true. We have strength and conditioning charts that give us this. But here's the big problem that we run into. The problem that we run into is that people who have not been training for many, many, many years will try to use those charts incorrectly. And they're easy to find, guys. You can literally go to Google and type in strength standards charts or strength standards, and you'll be able to pull up all the charts that I've shown you guys. They're easy to find in the strength and conditioning world. The problem that we run into is that these levels of advancement assume that you have been gaining muscle mass, and they assume you've been gaining lots of muscle mass. In other words, what do we know is the primary driver of strength? And this isn't a point of contention. This isn't something that I'm making up. It's not my opinion. This is what we have a lot of really good modern research on. Your strength, 90% of your strength is determined by the amount of muscle mass that you have relative to your arm and leg lengths and your levers. In other words, height being one of the biggest factors. Now, people will say, well, different people have different arm and leg lengths even at the same height. And well, that's why we're talking about sum total strength, not just one individual lift, because on one lift, long arms hurts you, and on another lift, long arms helps you. Leg length is largely controlled by height. Not saying there aren't some ratio differences inside the same height, but generally speaking, the taller you are, the longer legs you have. So here's the big problem we run into. People will use these charts incorrectly, and they'll come over and say, well, I weigh, 165 pounds. And they'll look at those charts and say, okay, so on this chart, to get to an intermediate, I need to have this sort of squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press. But to be advanced, I need to be over here. Well, here's the question I would ask that person. Have you ever seen anyone who's big, who weighs 165 at your height? Okay. If you're 5'5", I get it. A reasonably lean 165 for someone who's 5'5" is pretty big. But what if you're 5'11"? What if you're 5'11"? You need to be probably looking at the 198 chart. Maybe even the 220 chart. That's what you need to be looking at. Because realistically, a guy who has any serious amount of muscle mass at, say, 5'11" is going to be close to 200 pounds. You're not going to do that at 165. And when we say things like, well, a person can gain about 25 pounds, maybe 30 pounds of muscle over the course of their lifetime drug-free. Well, that's assuming the slightly shorter end. Especially when we get over to taller guys. Taller guys are really bad about using these charts and they don't understand. Go look at a fat-free mass index calculator. Okay, look at a fat-free mass index calculator and start plugging in, what sort of weight you would need to be at your height to be 13, 14% body fat. That's a very healthy athletic body fat, 13, 14%. How much do you need to weigh at your height? Go plug it in. Are you 5'8", 5'11", 6'1"? Start looking towards the 24. Start finding out what you need to get to 24, because 24 for people who aren't genetic freaks is like the sort of goal you should be looking for after over a decade of training. Like if you've been training more than 10 years, really hard, your fat-free mass index should probably be close to about 24. Now 25, it tends to be the more freakish people. That's your people who are genetic freaks who reach that drug-free while being reasonably lean. We're not talking about 20% upper body fat. It's a different topic. So here's the question I would ask someone. If you are not even within 20 pounds of the body weight that's near what your frame should be able to put on, why would you expect to be an advanced lifter? Okay? Do you expect to be the same size and weight after 5 more years of training? In other words, if you've been training a couple years and you put on a little bit of gains, do you really think you're going to be at the same body weight? Unless you're fat now and you plan on getting a lot leaner later, do you really think you're still going to be 165 pounds? If so, how much muscle do you plan on gaining? Do you not plan on gaining any muscle in that 5 years? And the other thing, people will look at these charts and then say, oh, well, I should get up to here, and then they think they're going to recomposition all the way there. Do you know how hard it is and slow it is to recomp? Okay, you're looking at, if you're going to recomp to reach a certain goal, expect to take 10 years to get where you could have gotten 3. You're playing a very long game. Most people who make any serious gains do bulk and cut. Like I bulk and cut small amounts all the time. People don't always necessarily realize that because I don't need to tell you guys every time I gain 10 pounds and then lose 10 pounds. I don't need to announce it in a video all the time. But I do it all the time, a couple times a year, to adjust my food intake. But I think a lot of people have these bizarre ideas that they're going to get to, say, a 24 fat-free mass index, drug-free, and just recomposition all the way there. No bulking. Sorry, that's not true. Go look at anyone, even whether drug-free or even guys on gear, and understand most of them did numerous bulks and cuts to get there. Sometimes, I mean, some of these guys, if you look who've been doing, some of the people you've been watching a while, or people you know who've been doing this 15 years, 20 years, and you start realizing that person has done 20 bulks and cuts to get where they are. Like 20. They didn't just sit at the same body fat or same body weight and recomposition. They didn't go to 185 or 190 and just sit there for 15 years straight. A lot of times these people, even someone who is at a leaner 185, 190, 195, they may have bulked to 220 to 230 a couple of different times along the way. And I'm sorry, this idea that people have been given that, well, you're just going to be able to make really lean gains and get big. Really, how many of the guys who are telling you that are using massive amounts of anabolics, right? And the ones that aren't, they're really small. They've never reached that potential. So they're telling you you can make lean gains. Oh yeah, you can just sit at 10% body fat year round and just gain 20 pounds of muscle. They've never gained 20 pounds of muscle doing it. See the problem there? So the point we have with these charts is that people will look at their current body weight if they're not fat, and they'll say, aha, well, this is my body weight, so this is what I need to be comparing to on this chart. No, because you may know someone who's that strong at that level, but you have to ask the question also, are they shorter than you? Okay, if they're 3 inches shorter than you with the same body fat, of course they're going to be stronger. If they're the same body weight and same body fat as you. Again, weight classes are height classes in disguise. And even when you do see some of these guys who have these astronomical numbers, you'll see a guy who's 165. You'll see a guy who's 175 who has amazing numbers. You're like, wow, that guy is insanely strong. They're usually short and they're usually quite lean. But what happens if they gain weight? Those same guys, if they were to spend a year stacking on 20 pounds, even these guys with elite numbers in those classes, their squat and deadlift are probably going to go up another 100 pounds. They're going to go from already being freak to even stronger if they just gain body weight. So that's the other thing that you have to factor in there. So when people use these charts, it's like, well, is my strength really good compared to, look at my body weight, and then they're still not very strong. And it's like, yeah, but you haven't gained that much muscle. You're going to have to gain, to get from this point to this point on the chart, you might be looking at 10, 15, 20 pounds of muscle. And to gain 15 pounds of muscle, right, you're probably going to have to put on more than 15 pounds of body weight. And then later you'll have to trim down a little bit to get back down to only being 15 pounds heavier than you are now. Does that make sense? And a lot of people seem to miss that fact when they're asking these questions. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.